Joined us here today in the room, but also by webinar. Um, I'm Jenny Frankel-Reed with the USAID Climate Change Office, and just wanted to kick us off today. Today we're talking about SERVIR, USAID's flagship science and technology cooperation with NASA, and Momo will go through the presentation for us. Just to give you a preview of upcoming meetings and subjects for this forum. I'm not sure if this will be the venue each time. Earth International Science Consortium presenting. In October, a presentation on climate change and gender by Professor Ed Carr. And in November, a presentation on IRAP, the IRI, International Research Institute on Climate and Society at Columbia University, and Arizona collaboration on climate services. So those are the three upcoming ones. And for those of you who want a little bit more information on SERVIR, we have a few flyers over there by the refreshments. All of this is available online as well. So to get started, SERVIR is a program that we've been running with NASA since 2005. It was not envisioned to become a global program when it started in Central America. It was really sort of a tailored program to help us answer some questions with geospatial tools related to conservation and biodiversity and protected areas. But the sort of success of it really created this much bigger program and this effort that now is a global one. And Albert will tell us about that. Just from the USAID side in terms of funding, this is both an adaptation program and a sustainable landscapes program, recognizing that sort of these technologies and tools have applications for dealing with risks and climate impacts, but also for helping us manage landscapes and land cover, forests, etc. So with that, I will hand it over to Albert. Yes.
My name is Albert Anoubon-Momo from USAID, the Global Climate Change Office. So I'm here to talk about SERVIR. So a little bit background about the SERVIR project. As Jenny said, is a joint program between USAID and NASA. And the goal of SERVIR is to improve environmental management and resilience to climate change. And the objective is to strengthen the capacity of government decision makers and other key stakeholders to integrate Earth observation information and geospatial technologies into development decision making. So that's what we want to achieve through SERVIR. And of course, we want to leverage the strength of both agencies. So NASA is bringing the science to the project, and USAID is bringing the users and the implementation in more than 100 countries. So what we do is we strengthen the technical capacity of regional institutions, stakeholders, and youth in developing countries. We improve access to data, models, online maps, and visualizations. As we all know, in those countries, access to data is really challenging. So one of the good part of the SERVIR program is to bring those data to people who are going to use the data and going to make some decision based on those data. And we help them create user-tailored decision support tools and services, with the same intent of having them use those geospatial data to make some decision. And we raise awareness of the value of user-tailored Earth observation information. And of course, we build partnerships between institutions in those countries and institutions here, and between institutions in various developing countries. The component of the SERVIR program at NASA, we have the program management office in the NASA headquarters, which manage some of those big projects for them. And we have a coordination office that is hosted by the Marshall Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. So that's where the SERVIR coordination office is. And we have also a science applied science team, which is a group of scientists from NASA who are working on some tools that can help, developing countries. And on USAID side, we have the Washington team here at the headquarters, and we have people working from various USAID missions around the world. And we also find that, in order for the people in those countries to use the data, in order to make impact of, using geospatial data, we need some kind of user engagement. We need to communicate data. So we create a team inside the SERVIR project that we call Demand Team, which is actually a contract that we have with GI. So they're dealing with all monitoring, evaluation, user engagement, communication, and managing some of our grants. And of course, we have what we call the SERVIR hubs, which are actually institutions in those developing countries that we use to develop the tools that we want to develop and that we use to reach the users. So the first hub was in Mesoamerica, is Catalogue in Panama City. The second one is in Eastern and Southern Africa, and the third one is in Hindu Kush, Himalaya. So this is a graphical representation of our current network. So we have Catalogue, which is in Panama City. ICM is the hub institution for Eastern and Southern Africa, and ICM is in Nairobi. ISERV is the hub institution for Himalaya region, and ISERV is located at Kathmandu, Nepal. We have a plan for expanding SERVIR. So by the end of this year, we hope to open a hub in Mekong region. And by the end of next year, we plan to have a new hub also in West Africa. So what have you done so far? I have some highlights of tools that we develop and how SERVIR is really in use. So this is a case in Bangladesh where they have some severe flooding problems, and for quite some time, the Institute of Water Modeling over there were developing a 3 days forecast. So they were forecasting for 3 days, which is not enough time, as you know, to plan for evacuation if you have to, or to plan for some, to prepare a flood. So through SERVIR, we try to link JSON altimetry data to flood forecast, and with that specific tool, we were able to generate flood forecast 8 days in advance, and we were also able to generate forecast for a larger region, including upstreams from region where they never have access to forecast. So using a SERVIR AST effort led by Dr. Hussein, we have the 8-day forecast that we were able to apply in the 2013 monsoon season, and also now they're incorporating it in all their forecasts in Bangladesh. So this is one example of how we can save life and how we can improve forecast in a specific country. In Kenya, frost is a big concern. For a country where tea is one of the main crop, and due to frost, they have millions of dollars that they lose every year because of frost impacting the tea over there, the tea crops over there. And of course, for those who knows the region, there's no way to predict when you're gonna have frost. You just wake up in the morning and you notice that there are frost on your tea. So what we did is we create an automated near real-time frost mapping system using satellite and in situ data. So with that tool, now they can have some kind of prediction of when frost can occur, and they can make plan to either they can choose to pick up their tea earlier, or they can find another way to react or to have some preventive measures on frost. So this is an example also of using geospatial data to improve a specific need in a country. Also in Eastern and Southern Africa, through SERVIR, we were able to generate land cover maps in 6 countries. And this is an example in Rwanda, where we have 3 different states of land cover maps. So we have for the year 1990, for the year 2000, and from the year 2010. So they were able, using our the satellite data, in that case mostly MODIS data, we were able to generate those. I want to say, using Landsat data, we were able to generate those land cover maps, and with some land cover categories that are the ones that are approved by all many institutions, including the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So those land cover maps were developed with those in collaboration with those countries, and we were able to generate them in those 6 countries, and we are planning to put all those land cover maps on, accessible online. So this is also a way to use geospatial data to get some results. Yes. Another flood application is CREST. CREST actually integrated satellite rainfall information, land shape and elevation, soil characteristic, and some other variables to, and we use some gauge, some stream gauge in specific areas, and we collect those data along with the data coming from the satellite to generate a flood mapping for some specific rivers in East Africa. So far we have 9 countries for which we can generate a flood map, and we can also show the stream flow on a viewer map online. So this is something that also we developed through SERVIR. Another application that we have is in Nepal, the use of satellite data to detect and monitor forest fires and to research fire patterns and behavior and to access damages in burned areas. So this fire application allow us to generate and to send text messages 20 minutes after detecting a fire. So forest manager, they receive on their cell phone a text message with information on the fire that is about to occur in the specific district. So this is also a cool application that we developed through SERVIR. I want to show, a specific product that we have. So this is the product catalog of SERVIR. Here you have access to all the tools and applications that we have developed through SERVIR, and you can actually search those tools by region. So you can have some global tools from East and Southern Africa, and you can, of course, even select the countries there in Himalaya region and Mesoamerica. You can search based on the theme, so it can be adaptation and adaptation to agricultural tool, and so far. The status of the application, is it an application that is active? Is it an application that is still in development? Or is it an application that is already out of use? And you can also search on based on the data source. So all the sensors that we're using to develop those tools, we can do the search based on that criteria too. And finally, you can search by type of application. Is it a so is it a tool? Is it an application? What type of application it is? So somehow it's not showing. Okay. And when you have the result, for each specific tool that you search for, you can have like a one pager that's going to describe the tool for you. So in this case, I think I've selected the Africa biodiversity map. So this is a one pager that gives you more information about the specific tool. So you can see the geographic region where the tools is implemented, the developers of that tool, all the partner and contributors to the tool, and who are the users of that tool, what type of Earth observation and NASA products were used to develop the tool, are used to run the tool, more information. And you can even, for some specific tools, you can access the tool itself. So this is a case of a tool that you can directly access from its one pager. So in the case of the Africa biodiversity map, this is how it looks like. So you can access this directly from the product catalog. So you have all the information there, and of course, use this one as a way to, this map as a way to access all the biodiversity information in the specific region. You can also use a map view to search the product catalog. So in this case, you have the 3 regions where SERVIR is implemented. So the Mesoamerica region, the Eastern and Southern Africa, and the Himalaya. By clicking on a region, you can have the list of, click on the country, you can have directly there the list of the tools that are specific to this. And of course, by selecting one of those tools, you're going to have access the one pager of that tool and possibly access also the tool itself. So with all these, what are some of the results that we can see SERVIR has so far? SERVIR have provided training to more than 1,800 people around the world. And more than 200 institutions have improved their capacity to address climate change issues through SERVIR. We have more than 200 scientists and decision makers participating in exchanges between SERVIR hubs and our partner institutions. And of course, you have more than 1,000 stakeholders so far who are using climate information in their decision making because of SERVIR. And if you go back to our product catalog, you're going to find out that we have more than 40 climate adaptation and mitigation tools that have been developed for SERVIR. And this number is about. So far, and this is as of today, 29 countries have some kind of SERVIR activity. And with the new hubs that we plan to open in the Beacon region and West Africa, of course, we expect this number to be even higher. And we have 59 countries with some kind of impact from SERVIR with, through either our science application teams doing some kind of work over there, or through our youth program called My Community, Our Earth, which is a program that helps students to develop some tools using geospatial technology. So this is a program that was supported by SERVIR, and with that program, we impacted even more students outside of our, what we call our hub region. And as of 2013, more than 1 million map requests have been made to SERVIR global website. So meaning that not only we are a good place for people to get to have access to our data or to see how those products can be used, but it's also a good repository of layers and data and geospatial data. As you can see there, the list of the countries where people are coming to our website to download those maps, those countries are not only our hubs countries. They are, you can see, people from 29, almost 30,000 people from UK coming there to download our data. You can see people from almost 9,000 people from Spain coming there to download our data. So SERVIR has I will call it an unintended result of being a repository for people to come and have access to some geospatial information that they can get somewhere else. And this is a list of all the satellites and sensors that are being used so far for SERVIR. And most of them are NASA satellites, but we also use some commercial satellites and some satellites from other countries or regions around the world. Another cool stuff with SERVIR is the camera that we put on the International Space Station called ISERV. And ISERV is a 3.4 meter resolution, spatial resolution camera that we use to collect some information that can augment the information that we can get from our existing satellite, and that can supply, replace some of high resolution satellite that we may not have. And ISERV has been proved to have a great impact when used for disasters and disaster management, or to collect data to do some validation on models. So what are the challenges of SERVIR? SERVIR is like bringing science to development decision making. Of course, this is easy to say, But with SERVIR, we can really create a link between the science and the decision making. When you show a decision maker, the one who's going to make the decision on evacuation in case of a flood, by showing him a flood map, by showing him, what can and how the flood can impact, activities on the region. This is the linkage that SERVIR is bringing to some of those countries, and we're transforming information into action, meaning that we not only geospatial information, just as an information is almost nothing. Geospatial information become a useful information when you can use that information to create or to suggest some kind of action. So this is also something that SERVIR is bringing. And as I was saying at the beginning, uh, access to data is one of the big challenges in developing countries. So through SERVIR, we're removing some of those barriers. And I would say not only barriers to data access, but also and especially to data sharing, to data dissemination with our website, with accessing through mobile devices. So through SERVIR, we can remove some of those barriers that still exist to accessing data and to sharing data between various stakeholders. And of course, we're moving from reaction in case of disaster to prevention and adaptation. So we're developing tools that are not only tools to react to something, but tools that can help in prevention and tools that can help with climate change adaptation. And of course, we're using a lot of feedback to forge new capabilities. And the user engagement is also one of the good aspects of SERVIR, because we're developing tools that can really be used, and we're developing tools with a purpose for people who are going to use those tools. And the reason we have this type of result, the reason SERVIR is probably something that is working pretty good, is this partnership between NASA and USA. And we understand that through this partnership, we have NASA bringing, all those incredible satellite data, but also the advanced science and modeling capabilities. And these advanced science and modeling capabilities are so most of the time only here in the US, with those scientists, with all those NASA people. So USA is bringing a presence in 100 countries and can create those connections between people who need those information. So NASA plus USA is create a potential for significant impact in development decision making. So that's what SERVIR is about.
So maybe we can both take questions. Just one thing with a couple of those tools that I think is noteworthy. With the Bangladesh example, one of the issues that Albert was mentioning was the issue of data sharing. And to drive a stream flow model, you need either stream gauge data or some other way to understand how much water is flowing. And India, the neighbor to the north of Bangladesh, is not sharing that stream flow data with Bangladesh. And so the earliest ability of Bangladesh to do that flood modeling downstream was when they could actually measure it. But this JSON satellite that takes the height of a river and can do it anywhere on the globe actually was able to look hundreds of miles outside of Bangladesh to then drive that model within Bangladesh. And so that's, if that data is free and open because it's collected by a NASA satellite, you remove the barrier of data sharing and can actually get a more accurate model that way. The other example, which I think is very important, is the one of the streamflow modeling in Eastern and Southern Africa, where the Hydromet agency is reluctant to share the 850 gauge station data that it has. But when you offer the ability to develop a forecast, if that data is not shared but necessarily and opened up, but used to calibrate a model, that breaks through that barrier as well. And so the offer to come up with a forecast resulted in the data being shared for the purpose of calibrating the model. And then not only the Hydromet agency gets to use that tool, but the water ministry, the ag ministry for irrigation decisions, the water ministry using it for permitting, the hydroelectric facility using it for looking at flows for dam operations. So these kinds of incentives, I think, are really interesting, and the satellite data is what makes that possible. So the TRIM data in the case of the Eastern and Southern Africa model was the precipitation data that was going to be able to give them a forecast. So I think some of the things that we could talk about are, what are the applications for climate change that satellite data make possible that maybe aren't possible other ways? And any other questions that people have about SERVIR?
Is this on? Thanks for the presentation. I have, I guess, one main question and one small question. I guess the main question is, why has SERVIR chosen to focus in these 3 areas and why not elsewhere? And we do work all around the world, and we look for data, and I think it would help people like us who are looking for consistent data sets everywhere if SERVIR had a presence in every country. So perhaps if there was sort of a nominal data set, maybe not a deep dive data set, but that it at least covered superficially perhaps some of the issues everywhere. That would be helpful for some of us. But maybe if you could explain a little bit about why the choices were made to focus in those 3 areas. And the second kind of detailed question is, how is the ISERV camera directed? What's the process for getting it to be directed? Thanks.
So on the first question, the project really grew organically. So from a project that was supposed to be quite regionally focused in Central America, sort of region by region. The model is building up regional capabilities to support national capabilities. So the way that it has worked is in line with priority regions from a climate perspective. The program has grown to Eastern and Southern Africa, the Himalaya region, now Mekong, and then West Africa will be the sort of 2015 network. But sort of to inform expansion in each of those regions, there's a detailed assessment that's done on what the needs of the national decision makers within those regions are, what the capabilities of regional institutions to provide those services are, and then a sort of decision is made about how then, what is the model for building up regional and national capacity through a SERVIR collaboration. I think this is useful input, though, that there is probably some low-hanging fruit that's global that we could make a better effort to provide. So we have right now a regional model, but I think we want to be responsive to whatever those needs are, and so we can certainly entertain what can we take and serve in a more intuitive way. We're working on a revamp of the website that will make that clearer. What are the assets that we have to offer? What's global? What's regional? What can you get? So maybe there's a way we can input on what.
Yeah, and just to add to that, we're going to make sure that in the new website that you have access, all the data that we have that are available worldwide, you're going to have access to those data that are on the website. But of course, the focus is always be on 3 regions, 5 to 5 regions. And now on the second question on ISERV, ISERV is like a different way of capturing satellite imaging without using a satellite. So with a satellite, you actually have everything built around the camera. So if you look at GeoEye-1, at WorldView-1, WorldView-2, WorldView-3, they are all built around the camera. So the camera is the main instrument, the main workload of the satellite. With the International Space Station, of course, that's not the case. So what we did was just to bring a camera there and find a space in the International Space Station where we can have our camera. And this camera is taking pictures, wherever it's possible. So that's not the main mission of the International Space Station. So we don't have any say on the orbit of the International Space Station. But at least since that altitude is really low, and with a 3.4 meter resolution, we can at least capture a lot of places in the globe throughout a day of orbiting of the International Space Station. And the camera is flexible enough to take picture far away or back away. So this is And it's a test bed. Hopefully, we can have something later permanent on the International Space Station.
How about the tasking?
Okay, so no, we have a team at the coordination center that collect all the orders as we do with all satellite imaging. So we have a list of all the area of interest for collection. And depending on the orbit of the International Space Station, we're going to capture the images that are reachable, through this orbit. And we have someone just capturing taking the pictures. And that picture that we receive is downloaded directly into our server and used as the same way you have it.
There's a protocol for tasking that the SERVIR hubs can submit requests and USAID can submit requests for imagery. So where there are those requests, they should go through either a USAID mission, USAID Global Climate Change Office, or those regional hubs to make those requests.
And I'm going to show you now the viewer of ISERV. Okay, so those are some of the areas where we have actual collections. And by zooming more, you can have access to the specific images. Unfortunately, I choose you. But you have enough information on when the image was collected, in this case, and the lockdown of the date of the collection, the time of collection. And you can directly download this image, and it's of course it's free for user to download this.
So the other thing is the camera is only in that window for it's a test run, and so it won't be there for, I can't remember when it's coming out, November. So it's not there for long, but it's getting some positive attention. So we'll see if there's follow-up.
Hi, thank you. This is a little bit of a comment, a little bit of a question. Until recently, I was working on a regional marine project, one of which this is the Coral Triangle Initiative support to it. And one of the large things that we had going on was the Coral Triangle Atlas. And I'm wondering if I assume you're familiar with it, and is there any plan to kind of link those up so that, because it is similar, sounds like a very similar mission of collecting data sources from various countries, getting more data out there, and getting better data sets that can be used for conservation. Just wanted to see if you had comments on that.
This was brought to our attention that there is this wealth of data that's been collected through the Coral Triangle program. And this is similar to Peter's question. What do you do when there is this opportunity for a platform like this to be useful outside of a region that fits our primary model, which is that regional capacity? But I think that's one where we need to have a really consistent strategy. So can we actually have a way, and this is one really good example, but there are probably many of that similar kind of example. How do we plan sustainably to be sort of a home or a catalog? And I think actually that catalog function is maybe more manageable, where we are able to sort of say, here's a lot of stuff that's available, whether or not we're hosting it. We can make sure that we have a more comprehensive view of what is available. That strategy takes outreach, maintenance, a way for people to submit and communicate that we don't quite have figured out yet, but I think it's a really important point.
We have a question from online here. Michaela O'Mealy from Apt Associates. She's a senior associate in climate change adaptation. Her question is, what will countries have to do to tap into access and benefit from the new Mekong SERVIR hub? Will host countries need to allocate their own resources, for example, to use SERVIR to build national, local capacities for accessing and using climate data for adaptation? That was a really long question. I could say it again.
I've got it.
Okay.
So we are very excited that SERVIR Mekong is almost finally here because it's been more than 2 years in the making. We have a little bit more, we've learned a lot from the earlier hubs experiences, and so we're trying to bring that into how we make sure that SERVIR Mekong is as responsive as possible to what those needs of Mekong countries are. Just first point, the countries that are part of SERVIR Mekong are Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, and Myanmar. And so the plan is that when there is an award made, which we expect to be in September, there will be a bit of a roadshow. And so that institution, which has actually been competitively selected to be the host of SERVIR Mekong, which is the first time we've done that to select a hub, they will go to each country, they will do a consultative process, they will leverage their networks because they were selected based on the strength of their network, so they'll build on those relationships that they have, involve USAID in those consultations, and get input. So to determine what that work plan should look like over the next 5 years. Because some of these activities take some time to develop, some of these applications, SERVIR is not set up to be sort of a response, quick response capability, but we hope to build in more of that responsiveness in the future. So I think getting that input, at least in terms of priorities, needs, stakeholders, opportunities, what we want to leverage from across the rest of the SERVIR network that's already been developed elsewhere, those countries will be able to have a say and provide input to it. Now, one thing is, whatever we develop that we can support with the $7.5 million SERVIR Mekong program that we have over 5 years, there may be more that countries want to do even deeper or into new areas or something. And that's where we hope the collaboration and the capacity building of this program can make those regional service providers more attractive to more business. So if other missions want to do something much deeper, they can go directly to that institution and get that service. So it's kind of two opportunities. One is in the work planning stage, and the other is to be more aware of what those capacities are.
Hi. So I was interested in one of the results you mentioned, which I think you said 1,000 people or stakeholders are using this climate information. And so I was wondering, how is that measured? Is this coming from one of the major projects? Who is doing this? And then what's the profile of that person? Is it a farmer in Kenya, or is it a policymaker sitting in a national capital?
Okay, the first part of your question, how is it measured? We know people who are using so through our hubs, we have the connection with the users. But more importantly, we are actually conducting a broad evaluation of SERVIR to make sure that the people that we suppose are using our tools are really using it, and those tools are really decision that they're supposed to make based on those tools. Hopefully, those numbers may actually be bigger than what they are now. And on the second part of your question, and you ask if who are those users? Depending on the tools, like in Nepal, the fire forest application, the main user are the district manager of the forest. And for the CREST application, we talk about the meteorology, the Met department in Kenya. They are the main user of the tool. So depending on the tools, you have different type of user. Does that answer your question?
We don't have another question on that last point, sorry. I think it's important that we recognize sort of this whole chain of information. Where does the raw data come from? Maybe a satellite or something. But then you have to do a lot to it and hand it off and analyze it and develop a tool and put it on a website or put it into an SMS and then see how well it works and train people to use it. So it's this long chain. How far does a regional institution go along that chain? So if that's our model, we've got the regional National Center for Mapping Resource Development in Nairobi. They have a governance structure. They have membership of 20 countries on their board that are, part of the decision making, and they support national governments. Then that tool can go as far as that national government, but is it really the mandate of the SERVIR hub to then make sure it's going out to a farmer, and how is it being used, and are we doing the validation? Yeah. Yeah. So to me, we need to be very clear that we are reaching users of tools, and through evaluations to verify that the beneficiaries are actually getting what's happening as a follow-on result. But our primary goal can't reach all the way down because it's an overstep, really, of a regional institution's job. But to Michael's question online, USAID projects reach from national to local all the time and help people use tools at the farmer level. And so that's where I think we have a really nice opportunity to connect, is what are we supporting globally at the regional level to help strengthen national capabilities? What's USAID doing at the bilateral level to help strengthen national capabilities to reach down to local levels? And we can have a really nice handoff there. You had something.
I'm Ian Fitzsimmons with Still Point Solutions. And I wanted to come back to RED for a minute. And obviously, one of the issues in RED is sort of monitoring. Equally, obviously, satellite monitoring is relative convenient. It's a relatively easy way to monitor land use, but it takes a lot of capacity on the ground to normalize conservation value across ecosystems, across local rule sets. And so I'm intrigued. You said you were doing some work at least in Uganda, and I'm curious about, are you doing it in other places? How extensive is the work? Do you see the potential for additional work through SERVIR on RED projects, and what kind of capacity building are you doing in Uganda with the government and Ugandans who are involved in the work?
Yes, so I'm going to explain a little bit the technicality of developing the land use. I mean, the main difference between what we can do now was possible, the resolution. Spatial resolution is much better now. So you can use satellite free. And so that's the first thing. At 90 meters, you can actually have those broader categories on. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, how do you validate? So you can either validate by sending people on the field and do some field validation, or you can also validate using. So that's the second aspect. A country like Uganda, so it's easy to generate a land cover in a country like Uganda. So, and the capacity building here is training people to be able to generate those land covers themselves, and also training them in using the land cover. So that's what SERVIR is able to do in Eastern and Southern Africa. And Uganda is only one of, so far we have 8 countries for which we have using Landsat and do, like I say, some validation, field validation, and also validation through validation. No, we are not using LiDAR image so far. It's too expensive. But what we try to do now is just to be able to generate, and the reason why we are doing the land cover now was for greenhouse gas. So at that level, what you want to get is the information about, and the resolution that we have, 90 meters, is good enough to capture this type of information. But now, if you want to generate things like surface mapping and map mapping and structural aspect of an area, then we need something more, either through LiDAR or through digital elevation model. But this is much more expensive, and this is part of the scope of our program.
There are a lot of components to it, so and it's not an easy question. No, but I think we're trying to get a better handle on what does it cost to run the different parts, so that we can think about being more savvy about like partnerships and expansion, more flexible. There is a lot of interest at the national level. We need to come up with some kind of answer to what that would require. On the Red Plus stuff, I was going to try and find one of the things that they're doing in a couple of regions, but I can maybe find it and send it to you after. But I think it's actually something that we haven't, when we did the initial work planning with the existing hubs that we have really active now, it was 5 or so years ago, and the demand for these tools is actually increasing now. And so I expect to do more of that kind of work, and the methods are different now. Yeah, yes. Definitely.
Yeah, hi, I'm Michael Brown with Chemonics. I have two questions. One, have you tried to, in terms of the causal chain or that link chain, sort of capitalizing on information at each link along the chain, have you looked at the experience from the regional and national ag research centers over time, and then how that works its way down through the extension services to the ground? I was just thinking, there might be something a bit analogous to that, and sort of getting to Haley's question about this has actually reached the farmers, or how do the farmers actually get to it? But sort of the assumption is that things have a way of working down, and just wondering in terms of knowledge and learning, lessons learned, whether there's been any look at that. And then the second question, just sticking on Kenya. Not that you've just been talking about Kenya, but looking at Kenya, there's one project like TIST, the tree planting project. Is there any sort of collaboration or interfacing between what TIST is doing with its satellite imagery and what you're doing in terms of sort of creating synergies, or is it just these are completely independent things, or could there be some capitalization for something like that?
On your second question, I don't think there has been to date. There are a lot of people doing similar things to what SERVIR is doing, and in that case, I'm actually not sure. One thing that we're doing to make more of those connections happen, though, is to put actual USAID people that are responsible for coordinating SERVIR out in those regional offices. We haven't had that yet. It's been run really as a global program, but now with somebody on the ground in Kenya, those kinds of connections should be much easier to make. So to my knowledge, that hasn't been a connection that's been made. And then your first question was about, oh, the chain and the ag. Yeah, exactly. My favorite subject, really. I think we have run this as, really led by these regional institutions and their knowledge, but more now we're seeing a lot of connections between some of the discussions in the climate services area, ag extension, absolutely. And with this evaluation that Albert mentioned, which is a 3-year global evaluation of SERVIR, those questions are really front and center. And so they're coming up with some evaluation methods that we hope will actually be replicable, so that they're not inventing them. Really, some of these methods have been used by ag research and extension services in the past, but they're very consistent. And I don't think the questions are so different about how do you get information, what do you trust, what methods, what timing, how do you communicate it out. But we've learned a lot, and we should really try and consolidate it better about the role of media, the role of different technologies for disseminating warnings, how early engagement of people makes them more interested in what comes out later, and just a lot of lessons like that. So yes and no, not enough in terms of what we're trying to be consistent.
I have another question from Mikhail O'Mealy from Apt Associates. Has there been any discussion of how to potentially extend some of the benefits SERVIR offers to priority countries that aren't currently served by SERVIR, such as Indonesia, for example?
We've heard this from Indonesia before. I think we don't currently have a strategy for that, but this conversation is reminding me that we need to get sort of more on top of what that response could be. And I think we have some lessons in terms of what it takes to establish common standards for making sure the data can be shared. What are the capabilities of an institution to provide services? Not just technical. You have to have buy-in, you have to have mandate from members, et cetera. So we could do more, I think, to package that and provide at least a model for what it would look like to replicate what we've done with SERVIR, even if it's not part of the SERVIR expansion strategy. So I will come back to that question with a dialogue, I guess, with the Indonesia mission to see what they're thinking, but we don't have a good response yet. I guess the other point on expansion is that a lot of countries, India, Philippines, Nigeria, a lot of places have quite good capability in this area, and we haven't focused on those countries as much. We focused on the places where those capabilities are really lagging. And so there's we could aim for kind of the gold standard, but really what we're doing is bringing up, I think, a base level in a lot of. Well, I think both Albert and I would be happy to take questions and follow-ups, but.